The lights dimmed slightly as the audience settled into their seats, buzzing with anticipation for another episode of The View. Joy Behar, with her signature sharp wit and unfiltered opinions, sat confidently at the panel, ready to dive into the day's hot topics. Across from her was the legendary Dolly Parton, dressed in her sparkling outfit that radiated warmth and southern charm. The conversation started innocently enough, with the hosts praising Dolly's latest album and her philanthropic efforts. But as the discussion shifted to politics and social issues, Joy couldn't resist injecting her pointed commentary. "Dolly, honey, with all due respect, your views on unity seem a bit naive in today's divided world," Joy quipped, her tone laced with condescension. The audience murmured, sensing the shift in energy. Dolly smiled politely, her eyes twinkling, but there was a subtle steel beneath her gracious demeanor. As Joy pressed on, questioning Dolly's stance on women's rights in a way that implied Dolly was out of touch, the tension began to build. Dolly responded calmly at first, sharing stories from her life growing up poor in Tennessee, emphasizing hard work and kindness. But Joy interrupted, laughing dismissively, "Oh come on, that's just feel-good fluff. We need real action, not fairy tales." The other hosts exchanged uneasy glances, and Whoopi Goldberg tried to steer the conversation, but it was clear a storm was brewing. Dolly's smile faded just a fraction, and she leaned forward, her voice steady but firm. "Joy, darlin', I've been in this business longer than most, and I've learned that respect goes a long way." The audience held their breath as the argument escalated, with Joy doubling down on her critique, accusing Dolly of pandering to conservative audiences. Dolly, ever the class act, didn't raise her voice, but her words cut deep when she finally retorted, "If you think my life's work is fluff, maybe you should try walking in my shoes, or better yet, my heels for a day." Laughter erupted from the crowd, but Joy's face flushed with embarrassment. The humiliation was palpable as Dolly continued, dismantling Joy's arguments with grace and intelligence, pointing out hypocrisies in Joy's own public statements. By the end of the segment, Joy was left sputtering, her usual dominance shattered by Dolly's unyielding poise. The break couldn't come soon enough, and as the cameras cut, the studio erupted in applause for Dolly's masterful handling of the situation. This moment would go viral, reminding everyone that true strength often comes wrapped in kindness. Back from commercial, the energy in the studio was electric, with whispers rippling through the audience about the earlier exchange. Joy Behar attempted to regain her composure, adjusting her notes and flashing a forced smile, but the sting of Dolly's words lingered. Dolly, meanwhile, sat serenely, sipping water and chatting lightly with the other hosts as if nothing had happened. The topic moved to celebrity activism, and Joy saw an opportunity to reclaim the narrative. "Dolly, your charity work is admirable, but don't you think it's a bit performative in this day and age?" she probed, her voice dripping with sarcasm. The audience gasped audibly, and Sunny Hostin interjected, trying to diffuse. But Dolly waved it off gently. "Performative? Well, Joy, I've built schools, given away millions of books to kids, and helped folks in disasters without needing a spotlight." "What's your definition of real help?" Dolly asked innocently, but the implication was clear. Joy bristled, launching into a defense of her own views on progressive causes, but her arguments sounded hollow against Dolly's lived experiences. As Joy grew more animated, gesturing wildly, Dolly remained calm, sharing anecdotes about her imagination library program and how it had changed lives. "You see, Joy, talking about change is easy from a comfy chair, but doing that's where the magic happens." The panel fell silent, and even Whoopi chuckled softly. Joy's face turned redder, her attempts to counter falling flat as Dolly effortlessly highlighted the gaps in Joy's logic. The humiliation deepened when Dolly quipped, "Bless your heart, Joy, but sometimes listening is the best activism." The Southern phrase, loaded with polite shade, drew roars of laughter from the crowd. Joy stammered, trying to pivot, but Dolly pressed on with stories of unity across divides, making Joy's divisive comments seem petty. By now, the argument had turned into a one-sided dismantling, with Dolly's humility shining through. The producers in the control room were likely panicking, but on air, it was pure television gold. As the segment wrapped, Joy looked defeated, her usual fire dimmed by Dolly's unassailable grace. Social media was already exploding with clips, praising Dolly as the queen of clapbacks. This wasn't just an argument, it was a lesson in how to win with dignity. The third segment opened with a lighter topic, but the undercurrent of tension from the previous clashes was undeniable. Joy Behar, determined not to let Dolly Parton steal the show, steered the conversation toward music industry politics, hoping to catch Dolly off guard. "Dolly, with all your success, why do you still cling to those outdated country tropes? It's 2026. Time to evolve," Joy said, her smile not reaching her eyes. The audience shifted uncomfortably, but Dolly laughed melodiously. "Outdated, darlin'. Country music is about real stories of love, loss, and life. What's outdated about that?" She countered smoothly, then added, "Maybe you should come to Dollywood and see how it brings people together." Joy rolled her eyes subtly, muttering something about commercialism, which the mix picked up. That's when Dolly's expression hardened just a touch. "Joy, I've faced critics like you my whole career, of folks who think they're smarter because they talk louder. But I've outlasted them all by being true to myself." The words landed like a velvet hammer, and Joy fired back, accusing Dolly of avoiding tough issues. "Avoiding? Honey, I've sung about Coat of Many Colors to teach about bullying, and 9 to 5 about women's rights before it was trendy." Dolly listed her achievements, each one underscoring Joy's superficial jabs. The other hosts tried to mediate, but the argument heated up as Joy interrupted again, calling Dolly's optimism Pollyannish. Dolly paused, then delivered the line that would echo online: "Joy, if being positive is a crime, lock me up. But negativity like yours, that's the real jail." Laughter thundered, and Joy's retort faltered. Humiliation set in as Dolly continued, sharing how she'd overcome sexism in the industry with wit and work, making Joy's comments seem ignorant. The audience cheered Dolly's every word, turning the tables completely. Joy looked isolated on the panel, her authority questioned. As commercials approached, Dolly ended with, "We can disagree without disrespect, Joy. That's the American way." The studio applauded wildly, and Joy forced a nod, but her discomfort was evident. This exchange cemented Dolly's status as unflappable, while exposing Joy's vulnerabilities. Viral memes were born that day, capturing the epic takedown. As the show progressed into its fourth part, the atmosphere was thick with unresolved friction. Joy Behar, feeling the weight of the audience's favoritism toward Dolly, attempted a personal angle. "Dolly, your image is so perfect, the rhinestones and all, but isn't it exhausting maintaining that facade?" she asked, implying artifice. Dolly tilted her head, her wig impeccable as always. "Facade? This is me, Joy. I dress up because it makes me happy, and if it brightens someone's day, even better." But Joy pushed, "Come on, it's all marketing. Real women don't need that much glitter." The gasp from the crowd was collective, and Dolly's eyes narrowed playfully. "Real women, Joy? I've been real since day only a poor girl from the mountains who dreamed big." "What's your excuse for the bitterness?" The direct hit stunned Joy, who sputtered about authenticity in media. Dolly didn't let up, recounting her battles with body image and how she turned criticism into empowerment. "I've had folks like you judge my looks my whole life, but I built an empire on being myself. Can you say the same?" The humiliation was intensifying. Joy's face contorted as Dolly dismantled her snark with facts and charm. The argument peaked when Joy accused Dolly of being apolitical, and Dolly replied, "I'm for people, not parties. That's why folks from all sides love my music." Cheers erupted, drowning out Joy's weak comeback. Whoopi intervened, but the damage was done. Dolly had exposed Joy's tactics as bullying disguised as debate. As the segment closed, Dolly added softly, "Joy, life's too short for grudges. Let's hug it out." But Joy declined awkwardly, her pride wounded. The live humiliation played out in real time, with cameras capturing every flinch. Post-show, analysts would call it a masterclass in verbal judo, where Dolly flipped aggression into admiration. Social platforms lit up with support for Dolly, dubbing her the Queen of Shade with grace. Joy's team likely scrambled for damage control, but the moment was etched in TV history. Entering the penultimate segment, the panel tried to pivot to lighter fare, but the earlier barbs had left scars. Joy Behar, now visibly irked, circled back to Dolly's philanthropy. "Dolly, your donations are great, but isn't it just tax write-offs for the rich?" she sniped, hoping to regain footing. Dolly chuckled warmly. "Tax write-offs, Joy. I give because I remember being hungry. My foundation has helped millions without fanfare." Joy scoffed. "Easy to say when you're worth billions." That's when Dolly's tone shifted to teacher mode. "Worth? My worth comes from helping others, not my bank account. Maybe try it sometime, yeah." Instead of tearing down, the audience roared approval, and Joy's attempts to argue back sounded desperate. Dolly listed specific impacts: books to underprivileged kids, scholarships for women, disaster relief. Each example highlighted Joy's cynicism as shallow. "Joy, criticism is cheap, creation is hard. I've created joy. What's your legacy?" The question hung heavy, humiliating Joy in its simplicity. She stammered about her comedy career, but Dolly interjected kindly yet firmly. "Comedy lifts up, yours seems to punch down today." Laughter filled the studio, sealing the takedown. The heated argument had evolved into a public lesson, with Dolly emerging as the wise elder. As time wound down, Joy looked deflated, her usual bravado cracked. Dolly ended graciously, "We all have bad days, Joy. Tomorrow's another chance." But the damage was viral bound, with clips dissecting every zinger. This wasn't just humiliation, it was a reminder that kindness disarms cruelty. Post-episode buzz focused on Dolly's poise, turning a potential scandal into her triumph. In the final wrap-up, the show attempted normalcy, but the elephant in the room was the cumulative humiliation Joy Behar had endured. Dolly Parton, sensing the awkwardness, offered an olive branch. "Joy, despite our differences, I respect your voice. Yeah, it's what makes shows like this exciting." But Joy, still smarting, muttered a half-hearted thanks, unable to fully concede. The audience clapped politely, but the energy favored Dolly overwhelmingly. As credits loomed, Whoopi summed it up, "What a lively debate." Yet everyone knew it was more a live dismantling. Dolly's final words resonated. "Remember, folks, argue with facts and heart, not hate." The studio erupted in standing ovation, leaving Joy isolated in her seat. Post-broadcast, networks replayed the highlights, with experts praising Dolly's strategy of responding with elevated discourse. Joy's public image took a hit, sparking debates on talk show etiquette. Ultimately, the incident boosted Dolly's legend, proving that true icons win battles with elegance. Years later, it would be remembered as the day kindness conquered condescension on live TV.